Thank you for watching Friday Night Football Talk. I am Fidel Barraza, alongside with me Kendall Whitley, SK Patrick, and the guys from the Orange is the New Black podcast, Ace and Zim. How you guys doing?
Pretty good, bro. Thanks for having us.
Doing really, really well tonight, man. I'm so appreciative of this opportunity. Thank you guys for having us.
Hey, well, we appreciate you guys coming on. So let's start off the show by telling you, let's talk about your podcast, your show. Tell us, what is it about? How long have you guys been doing this for?
Go ahead. Zim.
I knew this was gonna happen, like where I'm gonna be struggling throughout the whole time and be like, all right, is it my turn? But our pod, we started probably about a year and some change ago together collectively. Before then, Ace was doing his own thing. He's doing his New Stripe City on YouTube. Always had a big following there. I had a fairly large following on Instagram, so we merged the two. We linked up with SB Nation and Cincy Jungle and collaborated in that regard, and then the rest is history. And we just been hitting the ground running. This past year, we just did a hell of a lot of interviews. We do a lot of different things like outside of that too. But I mean, it's been a crazy year, man.
Definitely. Like piggybacking off of what Zim said, we kind of were looking out there and wanted to establish our footprint, and we both had well-respected, like Zim was crazy on Instagram. Zim has a huge following over there. I have a huge following, as he said, on my platform. And we went live. I think the first time we met, Zim, I think I went to your Players Only IG Live, and like it was just a great time, and everybody was so excited. And it was like, we got to keep this momentum going. So we had the idea. We talked with each other, and we're like, bro, we need to take this to the next level. And we actually started the podcast just by ourselves without the Cincy Jungle brand early on.
Right.
And literally after our first episode, like that we started, where we didn't even have like any crazy good equipment or anything. Like we literally got an offer right after our first episode. And so we had always admired Cincy Jungle as well. So we felt like it was a good partnership for us to team up with them. And then the interviews and stuff just rolled in. And like Zim said, it's just been a crazy year. So we're just continuing that momentum.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, disappointed season, but it looks like you guys found your franchise quarterback of the future in Joe Burrow.
100%. Shout out to my man Rohan. I got my Protect Joe Burrow shirt on tonight or whatever. But it's everything I thought it would be. Me and Ace, we were on this thing where we would do the show. And last year, people were talking about tanking, and we weren't 100% on it on board at first. But then I started getting a whiff of Joe Burrow play at LSU. He was kind of watching Tua. We started, like we were really, really early on this Joe Burrow train. And then it just continued to the point where I went and bought the domain Burrow Babies and started up a clothing line. So, like, if anybody believed in Joe Burrow, it was like us from the very beginning. So we just kept that same momentum going. And I checked out a lot of different things from him, just the mental side of it, him interviewing people, all these different things that are, that were going on, as well as the play on the field. And if you hadn't had a chance to really watch Joe Burrow and the Bengals offense this year, then you probably wouldn't understand how much he means to the city of Cincinnati, because you have to really watch the games, and the position that they put him in is so different than, like, I hate to talk about Herbert, but it's so different than what Herbert had to go through. It's like the situation where it's the most volatile situation you can imagine. Get him back there and throw 50 times and be successful. And he almost won every single game that he played in. And he was asked to do more than anybody has ever been asked to as a rookie quarterback. And he excelled, and he just was getting better and better. And it's a shame that he got hurt. But Joe Burrow is that guy. He will be that guy for the next 10 years. And you could book that and go tell anybody that you want to tell.
Why do you think he meshes so well with the city of Cincinnati?
I mean, Ace, you want to take that? I mean, he's an Ohio kid, so off the break, they were going to love him anyway. But if you ever seen an interview or just see him talk, I mean, what's not to like about him? Like, he's perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like Zim is saying, he was perfect for Cincinnati because, like Zim said, he's from Ohio, went to Ohio State. A lot of people in Cincinnati are naturally Ohio State fans. He left there. He went to LSU. He had a remarkable season. And so all of the excitement that we had seen it made it easier for that transition. Him being an Ohio guy made it easy for people to kind of come around to removing Andy Dalton and going with Joe Burrow, because there was a huge contingent of fans that did like Andy Dalton. Me and Zim would call them Dalton lovers. And they were loyal to him. But the fact that he went to Ohio State, the fact that he was the biggest news story, the fact that we saw him blow up in the playoffs and just everything, him doing what he did in terms of the Ohio Food Bank for Athens, Ohio, that was huge. Him also making statements in the offseason about what was going on in the country, even though he said this isn't a civil rights issue or this isn't a political issue, it's a civil rights issue. That gave him a lot of kudos as well in the community. And then the fact that a lot of the players kind of embraced him as well, right? Like, this is a guy that's coming in as a rookie. They immediately made him a captain just because of his personality. There was so much excitement that the city had that we hadn't really had in a long time. And it's like, we're getting one of the guys that could potentially be, you know, the best quarterback in the NFL someday. And he's coming to Cincinnati. So we had never really had that. You're talking about, from our culture, like some of the biggest icons for the Bengals in recent history have been Chad Ochocinco and AJ Green. And you could argue that we haven't had as huge of a star for the Bengals since Chad Johnson or since Chad Ochocinco, because although AJ Green is immensely talented, he's a legend in my book, he's not really a guy that speaks too much. And, you know, the media kind of sleeps on him in a sense. So this is a guy that they're going to have to talk about the Bengals. So that was another thing that made him mesh with me, and the fact that he supports Ohio in general. And this guy goes on and does all kind of interviews, wears local brands. So that's why the city of Cincinnati, I think, embraces Joe Burrow.
What's going on, guys? Hope y'all doing all right, man. First off, I want to thank y'all for coming on. Y'all got some good things going on at New Strike City. I seen a lot of y'all things. I've been following y'all for a couple months now. I said, man, I got to get these guys on. So first, I want to thank y'all for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
And secondly, y'all picking at number. Y'all got the 5th overall pick this year, right?
Yes, sir.
Number 5.
Are y'all gonna take Ja'Marr Chase and pair him up with Joe Burrow, or y'all gonna take Penei Sewell? What y'all gonna do?
Well, I would say I think that the likely move, especially since Joe Burrow has recently talked about this twice. I think once with like his press conference for the Bengals, like his first one after he kind of had the surgery and gave an update. He talked about, they kind of asked him, like, would you want to play with Ja'Marr Chase? He kind of gave a smile and he was like, yeah, I mean, it would be nice if it happened. Kind of doubled down on that I think it was yesterday.
That was the day.
Today, yeah, today with Fanatics. Someone asked him again, would you want to, play with Ja'Marr Chase? And he was like, of course I would. I think this city and just this ownership, like, one of the things that Mike Brown did, obviously we went through an offseason where there were a bunch of narratives. Joe Burrow doesn't want to play for Cincinnati. You got to make moves to show that you want to do things. Yeah. Clearly, we followed that up with signing and doing a lot of things in free agents under the guidance of Joe Burrow, right? And our owner wrote Joe Burrow's parents a letter saying that he would do anything to make sure that this team would compete for a championship. If Joe Burrow wants Ja'Marr Chase, he's going to get Ja'Marr Chase. If he's there, I think that's the pick, even if Penei is on the board, right? Because I love Penei Sewell, but I would be lying to you guys to say if they are both on the board, if they call, and I've talked to like people, and Zim has talked to people before that are close with the Bengals, they do call players. Like they have called guys like AJ Green in the past and said, hey, do you like this guy or that? I'm pretty confident that they'll call Joe Burrow, and I think because of that, Ja'Marr Chase will be the pick. Then what are your thoughts on that same question?
I mean, the city is, like people are printing stuff like this, protect Joe Burrow. So ultimately, the offseason has to be the tone is give him an offensive line, right? If they fail to do that in free agency, then yeah, if Penei Sewell's on the board, they might even what I would call, it's hard to reach at number 5, but the kid Slater, the other tackle from Northwestern, I can see them going that route. They might do that if they don't go that route in free agency. But if they do make a splash pick in free agency, Darrell Williams is a guy to look at. The tackle from the Buffalo Bills. Maybe Moton from the Panthers, and then the outside chance of like Trent Williams or something. If they did something like that, it would tell me 100% they're going like Ja'Marr Chase if they have the opportunity at number 5. If it's not Ja'Marr Chase, I think the city would accept Devonta Smith and then after that, probably like Kyle Pitts. The one guy that everybody I think is shying away from is the guy Slater that I was saying, who I think will be a solid pick. But it's like this. I feel like the older Houday crowd is more leaning towards we just need offensive linemen. We need a gang of them.
Yeah.
And then the younger crowd is more so like, no, we just need to give them weapons. And I feel like me and Ace kind of like invite both of those two crowds to our forums and let them duke it out like every single day. If you were to ask me, it's Jamar Chase all day. I watch the playoffs. I watch how teams failed to have weapons at certain times, and just that one weapon short on for the Browns, or one weapon short for the Bills, or like these things that when you fail to put up points in the playoffs when it matters the most, it really sheds light on it when you get to the playoffs. And although the Bengals aren't there, I just think the foundation of Higgins, Boyd, and Jamar Chase for the next 3-4 years is so solid, so crazy. Joe Burrow, if you watch them play, like if you're open, like those guys will be, it's happening like that. Like you're going to playoffs like that year, and I could figure out the line like in free agency. The tackles are deep, second round, third round. Like I feel like you could do it. So,
hey, I like where you're coming from with that tackle position, because I would rather have a more veteran tackle who's adapted to the NFL already, protecting my my number one investment. And then, like you said, Jamar Chase, go ahead and get out there on the outside. Y'all got a rapport. Y'all can take it to the next level. You got a stout line already with a tackle who knows how to play in the NFL instead of a rookie tackle that, I just don't like that, putting that tackle out there on him. So I'm liking where you're coming from with that tackle in the free agency, and then going to get your wide receiver. Plus, AJ Green is getting up there in age too, so you need that playmaker on the outside as well.
Hey man,
He's gone.
Hey, speaking of weapons, I'm a Patriots fan, and I was on draft night. I wanted us to take T. Higgins. So what y'all think about T. Higgins in his first year? How impressive was he to y'all?
I mean, T. Higgins, like Zim already knows, like in our community, or the Bengals community, we were huge on T. Higgins. Like there was this huge Denzel Mims training. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. It just really was a lot of our fans that were like, oh, Denzel Mims. And there was a lot of groupthink on that. And I feel like they were overthinking it. I mean, like when you looked at T. Higgins coming out of Clemson, the dude was a monster. He was an animal. And you look at the pedigree that Clemson receivers, what they put into the league. You talk about DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, Sammy Watkins. They've got some notable guys. Martavis Bryant is another. They've shown that guys that go there and can produce in the league. And, there was a lot of stuff, and you always get that every draft season, right? They said similar things about Tyler Boyd. His 40 speed isn't fast and stuff like that. And I generally don't get caught up in that stuff because there's lots of different ways that you can cause route separation. I always thought that T. Higgins should have been a first-round pick. Like I never thought that he would even make it to the second round. So when he was still there, it was like he has to be the pick. Like you had to take T. Higgins no matter, who's out there, right? And so obviously – T has almost, in a sense, exceeded my expectations, and I expected him to be good. I didn't expect him to be good to the point where this guy, literally, if he doesn't go down with an injury, he has the franchise record of receptions, I believe, for a receiver in his rookie year. So for me, he's exceeded it. Go ahead, Zim.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, yeah, he would have got that record easy. Coming into the last two games, he had a hamstring injury, but he really wanted to get 1,000 yards, and he ended up hurting himself in the final game. But like someone just wrote the comment, if Joe Burrow was there, like, I mean, T. Higgins, we probably be talking about T. Higgins probably 1,200, 1,300 yards. We're talking about an offense that was getting third string, second string quarterbacks that you probably never even heard of. I don't know if you guys really followed the career of Ryan Finley, but like these guys are throwing for like 150 yards a game, and T. Higgins still has 1,000 yards or close to it. So when that's what the last question you asked, like pairing Jamar Chase up with T. Higgins, who
and Tyler Boyd,
and Tyler Boyd, who is arguably like a top 3 slot in this league. And I will say this, coming into this past year, we had really high expectations. Coming into the year, I would argue people down and say that the Bengals had the best wide receiver core. Now this is coming into it thinking John Ross is going to really pan out, which the Bengals staff failed him. And then I'm also thinking that AJ Green is going to come back to form, which we interviewed him. If you guys didn't see that, that was like one of our really big moments. But But those two things didn't happen, and it was a lot of different communication issues, and it was a lot of different things. Like AJ Green is going to go somewhere next year. I hope he goes to Green Bay, and he's going to prove a lot of people in the Bengals front office. He's going to prove them wrong because they would blank him out of games. Like they would use him as a decoy and wouldn't give him targets. You know what I mean? So he came off the season fully healthy. Like if you don't really follow the Bengals that much and you're in this chat, AJ Green is not done. Like you want AJ Green on your team. But coming into the year, we had really high expectations and it didn't pan out. But I could definitively say Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins is a nightmare.
Hey, what y'all think about Kyle Pitts at number 5? Would y'all take that?
Zim, you already. I'm gonna let Zim answer this one first because I've been answering some of them, but Zim, they already know what I think on this. But go ahead.
That's the Kyle Pitts, man. I remember me and Ace did a show, and I don't know if it was the first time. I don't know if Ace had heard about him or not, but I had watched a Florida highlight tape or something, and I said, dude, this dude reminds me of Darren Waller. And I came on the show, and I told Ace, I said, man, there is a tight end that I want. I worry about his blocking because at this stage like Waller is like a converted wide receiver to tight end, and the tight end and the linebacker position to me are the two hardest positions to get people 100% on board on what you're doing in the NFL. That's the hardest two positions to convert from. And for Bengals fans that are dying for somebody to go crazy year one, it's really tough for me to feel good about Kyle Pitts at number 5, knowing what I know about the tight end position. But if they were to trade out of the pick and get down to 8, 12, something around there, I'd be all for Kyle Pitts. But I just can't see it really. Like I can see the front office maybe doing it because they do like the tight end position, but taking a tight end that high is like super unprecedented.
Right, and I agree with Zim, and I understand like everyone's feelings on the tight end position because as he said, tight ends generally don't get picked that high. I'm not sure. I don't believe there's ever been a tight end picked in the top 5. I think there's been one picked at 6. But for me, the other thing too with that is, generally tight ends in their rookie year don't really contribute immediately, right? But for me, I think that the way that the NFL is shifting in the direction that we're heading to, and we've seen this, whether it's been changes with running backs starting to become receivers and all kind of positional changes that we've seen, obviously the quarterback position, guys starting to scramble more. I think Kyle Pitts is in that mode, and I think that there's a revolution that's kind of going on at the position where you're seeing guys like Waller, you're seeing guys like Travis Kelce. Obviously, these guys are just a problem that hasn't been solved, and it's really been going on since the Patriots, as you know, Kendall, started it off with Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez, and that's when it really started with the Jimmy. I'm blanking on his name right now. Jimmy Graham, and those guys, right? But it's almost like it went to another level. Like Travis Kelce and these guys recently, and even Kittle, they're taking it to another level because now these guys are having 1,000-yard seasons. They're having double-digit touchdowns. And we see this year, Travis Kelce is leading all pass catchers. Yeah. So for me, I think when we put tight ends in this position where it's a tight end, don't take it. But if this guy was a receiver, you would take him. You wouldn't have a problem taking a wide receiver number 3 overall and stuff like that. And so for me, the major reason why I'm sold on taking Kyle Pitts at number 5 is because that mismatch that position causes. Now you have guys going out and trying to get these smaller, faster linebackers. They're now smaller than the tight ends. So you got a safety who's way smaller than this tight end, and you have a linebacker that's smaller than this tight end. Even if you have a nickel corner, he's smaller than this tight end. You literally have a position that no one can guard. And I have yet to see it even happen since Gronk and all of those guys come in. No one has been able to stop these guys. And so for me, when you look around our division, you always talk about beating your own division. And I'm also on another podcast where we look at the AFC North talk, and I've noticed where the weaknesses are with the other teams. I know that the Ravens don't have good linebackers anymore. There's this stigma that, they had Ray Lewis, their linebackers are good. Their linebackers aren't that good. And then you look at Cleveland, they have no linebackers. They probably have the worst in the division. You look at the Steelers, they have Devin Bush, and Devin Bush isn't really good in coverage, but everybody after that is garbage. So it's when you look at it from that standpoint, if I get Kyle Pitts and I put him against any of these linebackers in our division, they're toast because this guy is more of a receiver, like we've been saying. It's almost very similar to the kid in New York as well. But Kyle Pitts, to me, just could possibly be a slam dunk for us. And he's a safety basket as well when you talk about pressure on Joe Burrow and stuff like that. The tight end is the safety blanket. If somebody's blitzing, you're going immediately to Kyle Pitts. Anybody that's a defensive coordinator is not going to blitz their linebackers when you have Kyle Pitts right there because he's just going to eat you alive as a receiver. So I think from that perspective, just based on the division, based on how he could integrate with this team, what he could do, where the position is going, I would take a top 5 pick on him, but I'm not in the majority. And I know that, and I understand the concern of people saying I wouldn't take Kyle Pitts because you look at the O.J. Howards of the world and these guys that have happened, and they just haven't lived up to expectations. Yeah. But for me, I'd roll the dice, bro. I'd roll the dice. This is a guy that we've never seen at the tight end position before, and I think people also fail to realize that this guy finished in top 10 in the Heisman and only playing 8 games out of 12. He didn't even play 12 games. So, like, that to me is what kind of separates him from some of the previous guys.
Yeah. Let's go and talk about Deshaun Watson really quick before we let you guys go. So obviously, yesterday, formally requested a trade from the Houston Texans. Where do you think he's going to end up? Let's start with Ace.
For me, I think he's going to go to the New York Jets, right? And when I look at what they have, before I was thinking Miami Dolphins is probably where he's going. And I kept hearing the Jets. So I had to do my research to figure out, okay, how could he go to the Jets? Why would he go to the Jets? And number one, they got a better offensive line for him there, right? They got plenty of cap space. The other thing is they have plenty of capital. Whereas I thought that Miami had the better capital, it may actually be the New York Jets that have the better capital. They got 2 first-round picks this year, 2 next year. They still got a second round this year. They got a second round next year. Like if you offer all of those picks and Sam Darnold or something like that, that is the best offer because the Texans would be getting all of those draft picks. They still have a young quarterback in Darnold. You still can take another quarterback at number 2 if you want, whether that's Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, whoever that is. I just think that it's the best one for both sides. The other factor is Deshaun Watson has a trade clause, a no trade clause in his contract. It said straight up, like, I want to go play for the Jets. Like, that's my preferred destination. So for me, I think it's the Jets.
Now, I haven't heard of anything. I've heard a lot of speculation about where he wants to go, but just based off of what I've seen is that he wants to go to a contender. So I don't know if he views the Jets a contender after they gave up that much capital. So that would be the one concern that I would have, like, with that. Like, I feel like that's probably the best offer. But I think if he's really trying to make this thing work and he could find a median and the organization can give them what they want. But I think the 49ers or the Bears are the best, like, landing spots for him. That's just me personally. I don't have any intel or insight onto it, but if I'm him, I'm going somewhere like that. I'm not going to the Jets. Like, not to say that, the Jets are,
No, he did mention though that he would prefer going to the Jets over some teams.
Really?
Yeah, he said that last week.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when he said that. When I saw that, I was like, so even over, because at first we heard like Miami, right? And he was like, he for 2 on that trade, and then it was like, oh, I would prefer the Jets over, Miami and the 49ers. I started kind of scratching my head there.
Do you think it's more about being in New York than it is necessarily playing for the Jets?
That's what I was going to say.
That's what I worry about because it's like, okay, Deshaun is one of my favorite, right? He's one of my favorite quarterbacks. I couldn't believe the year that he came out that people were actually debating whether or not he should have been number 1, given the resume. You talk about this guy going in the national championship 2 years in a row, throwing for 400 or 500 against Alabama. I mean, I didn't know what else you really needed to check off of that checklist, but I do have concerns with him getting caught up in the whole New York thing because the Jets have been complete trash. I'm sorry for any Jets fans. Let me ask trash organization for a while. I mean, they haven't been good since
Rex Ryan. Let me ask y'all this a question. Would y'all trade? Somebody asked me this earlier today. This was a crazy hot take. If you're the Ravens, would you trade Deshaun Watson for Lamar Jackson and whatever that comes with it? and then also they asked me as a Bengals fan, would I trade Joe Burrow for Deshaun Watson? What do y'all feel about that?
Yes and yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
and Lamar's my guy. I went to the
Yeah.
University of Louisville. I've seen him play in person, but I mean, just the skill set alone,
Yeah.
I would go with Deshaun. He's just more he's more trustworthy at the quarterback position than Lamar. So I would definitely. But on your
I should have phrased it differently with picks. You know, like, are you giving up first round picks and Lamar
Yeah.
to get Deshaun Watson?
Yeah.
Are you doing that? Are you multiple first round picks for in both scenarios?
Well, let me add another team in there. What about the Jacksonville Jaguars?
Yeah, Trevor
You got
Lawrence.
Trevor Lawrence, first overall pick.
Urban and
Look,
Deshaun?
you know what Deshaun Watson is. We don't know what Trevor Lawrence is. I mean, obviously he's one of the greatest prospects that's going to be in the NFL, but we already know what Deshaun Watson is in the NFL. We don't know what Trevor Lawrence is.
See, I love Deshaun, but another thing, like, and I'm not trying to go against him here, but you do have to take into account that he won less games than the Bengals did with Ryan Finley this year. So, like, I get where people are like, he's going to be an upgrade, but I think that you have, and maybe it's that Houston doesn't have the right stuff around him, right? Because he has been to the playoffs before
Well,
season prior. But
they did have a couple close games though. One of them right off the bat against Tennessee. Actually, a couple.
You want to talk about close games? like let me show you the Bengals like how we were robbed week 1.
Oh yeah, no.
Like you want to talk close games? Like,
and I get that 100%.
Won like 7 games.
But Deshaun is a star, man. I mean, the kid is only 25 years old. We're in uncharted territory where we're seeing this happen. The one thing that I do to myself when I think about this, I kind of worry about this precedent, because if you're 25 and you just literally signed a new extension with your team, right? You're getting close to being out of that rookie deal. It's setting the precedent where if, let's just say the Bengals are in that situation, and let's just say like things don't go well, right? And we're getting ready to give Joe Burrow an extension, but our GM has a new plan to revamp everything. I think it could start a trend where young quarterbacks, if they're not satisfied, even if they're committing to an extension, they're going to feel like they can force their way out. And that's
I like that trend.
That's the only thing I worry about.
I want it to be like the NBA, bro. I want it to be lit and people moving all around all the time. I love it.
I do too. I want to take it in my hands, and especially if it's all with this medium, it's all about championships. And if this option gives me the best chance to win a championship and extend my brand, then I'm going with it. I'm sorry, I love y'all, my football family, but I gotta get traded.
Yeah,
especially
I
when you trade my number 1 receiver, and then on top of that, you say that I'm gonna have input. Like it's one thing if Deshaun went to the team and say I want input. Y'all came to him and said that y'all wanted input.
But see, there's a lot more though. There's a lot more that we don't know about this, right? I mean,
well, yeah, that's
think
on
about
the surface.
But he signed this contract back in August or September. We're in January. Not even a half a year. What's happened, right? There's got to be more to the story that we don't know about.
Yeah,
I think more and more is going to come out. But it seems just what we know on the surface. It seems like they just didn't respect him.
But here's the flip side to that.
I think they promised he would be involved in it.
And I'm all for players taking control of their career and everything, right? Here's the flip side of that, though. If you're complaining about your receiver and stuff like that being gone, you not having enough talent, don't take up the majority of the cap space. Like, how can you're a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers right now? He's like, oh, well, you guys need to get me more weapons and stuff like that. But at the same time, I want to make 30 more million next year. Like, you can't have both. Like, it doesn't work that way, especially with quarterbacks, commanding so much salary cap. That's the only thing where I kind of wonder if that's the case, you have to take less money. Like we talk about Tom Brady, right? One of the big reasons why the Patriots and I'm speaking here for you, Kendall, and you can let me know if I'm wrong because I'm not huge into the Patriots and stuff like that. But the reason why the Patriots were supposed to win so many times is because Tom Brady was always like, I'll restructure and work my contract. I don't need to be a top paid quarterback in the league. That means that we can go and get Stephon Gilmore and guys like that, Randy Mosses of the world.
Tom Brady got hella endorsements.
And that's why the Patriots were 7-9 this year, because Brady didn't do that, and we were trying to build a team around him. And like Belichick said, hey, We went all in for a few years, and look where we at now. So this year we got a lot of cap space. We got 15 picks. We be back in it. But I do have one Bengals question for you. One more Bengals. Then I'll let y'all go. What are the Bengals ranked right now in the AFC North?
Sam, go ahead.
Last.
But the AFC North is tough.
The AFC North is tough. I had to agree with Zim. Like, even before the season started, I thought that the AFC North was going to send 3 teams. Now, I wanted the Bengals to be one of those teams. I actually thought that the Steelers were going to be the ones to take a step back because at that point, we didn't know where Ben Schroeder is going to be at.
Right.
I think, like Zim said, like until we see how free agency and everything plans out, you have to take that you're the worst team in the division for now. But that can change. Like if things happen in free agency, Joe Burrow comes back, I could see us ascending past the Steelers. I think the Steelers are
going
on the way down.
I got a question to piggyback off the Steelers statement also.
Go ahead.
Let me say something real quick. Real quick about that same thing. I'm sorry, SK.
No, go ahead.
It's just like I tell people with Lamar Jackson. A lot of people had a lot of negative stuff to say about him throughout the year, right? And I don't know why they do that just to Lamar, right? But until somebody proves him wrong, he was the reigning MVP. He's still the reigning MVP until someone dethrones him, right? This upcoming season, my record is who I am. I can't talk about. I told Fidel about like how we had so many close games and Like it is what it is. Our record is who we are, right? And until that changes and they start winning games, we are last in the division. I am a realist in that aspect. I will say we have the talent when healthy, which is something that we've been saying for every single year. When healthy, to be better than probably all 4 teams in the North at some point. It just depends on what they do in free agency, but they could. But Joe Burrow has to be playing. Jamar Chase has to be on, all cylinders. Like you can't have this. John Ross is playing 1 game, then he's out 8 games, and then we just went a whole season without our starting cornerback and Trey Waynes. Or you can't have all these things happen and then think that you're going to be better than that. But I'm sorry, SK, go ahead and phrase your question.
No. I'm glad you finished that because Ace had brought up just Steelers, and that just met this light bulb just went in my head.
I hate the Steelers though.
Big Ben is nearing the end of his career. Today came out that he was willing to restructure his contract. So I pitched this question earlier to the fellas as well, fellas and ladies, I should say. What do you feel like that quarterback situation is going to look at? Do they go out and get another quarterback to compete with Haskins, or is Haskins their quarterback of the future?
I'm hoping Haskins is their quarterback because he's terrible. I prayed this morning. I said, I hope they're stupid enough to walk out there with Haskins and this bum shoulder old 40-year-old dude that we just took out with our number 3 quarterback because they would really suck. If they're smart, they move on from Ben for real. Like if I'm being 100% honest, like this is the time where they need to cut ties or do something. At this point, with the cap number, I heard him come out earlier today or yesterday and say he'd be willing to restructure.
He's going to come back.
He's still too high. He's still too high. Like they need to, out of all the things that we talked about, they need to go make a play for Stafford. They need to go make a play for. One person y'all talked about earlier. I think Jimmy G is the perfect quarterback for them because I feel like with the system and the coaching that they have in place, they don't need that much from the quarterback position. And I feel like Jimmy G would be really good for that. But
never thought about Jimmy. Didn't think about Jimmy.
What I can see happening also, because I saw Carolina earlier say that they're going to pursue Deshaun Watson heavily. What's going to happen with Teddy Bridgewater? Where's he going to end up at?
My God.
He might end up in Pittsburgh.
I mean, I'm good with that too.
I'm good with that too.
I hate on my guy Teddy.
This division is tough, man. When you really look at the AFC North, this is why it's so good. You got 3 Heisman winning quarterbacks. No matter how you cut that, you got Lamar Jackson, you got Joe Burrow, you got Baker Mayfield, which Baker, like, I'm not going to sit here and say he's a leader or anything like that. He's got a great line around him. He's got great weapons around him. He's got a coach that knows how to utilize him. So whatever quarterback comes into this division, as long as it's not one of those guys that's on par with one of them, like we're good with that. And I think like when you talk about the Steelers, like Zim said, it may not matter who they plug in there because we are, one season removed, or whichever way you want to count it, 2 seasons removed from them going 8-8 with complete garbage at the backup position. You talking about Mason Rudolph is garbage.
Right.
You talking about Duck Hodges. I mean, these guys aren't even possibly in the league next year. So, they have done a good job with that, but I would love for them to stay in quarterback hell. I don't want them to get any quarterback. Let them keep getting trash guys and go downhill. I'm all for it.
Well, hey, gentlemen, we appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we can talk again soon about, Bengals before free agency and the draft. Real quick before we let you go, where can our viewers follow you on social media?
You can find me at New Stripe City on Twitter. You can also find me on there. You can also find the Orange is the New Black podcast. It's actually under the name Cincy Jungle. I get a lot of people saying that they try to search Orange is the New Black in your podcast platform. It's actually under the Cincy Jungle podcast. You can find me and Zim there. So be sure to subscribe there and check us out there.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone, for watching.
Yes, sir.
And have a great weekend and stay safe. We'll talk soon.
All right, I'll take it easy.